It's alright.
Oh my god!
Oh guys, what is up? Maxing up Borderlands 3 video, and today we're going over every single weapon that was buffed in the most recent hotfix. Now, unfortunately, a lot of these buffs were delayed, so the weapons didn't get their buffs until now, but I have the percentages for every single buff, and we'll be going over which ones are worth your time and which ones just didn't get enough love. Now, real quick before the video starts, guys, we did hit 150k. I'm doing my celebration for that over on Twitch right now. We have 75 prizes to give away, and for my YouTube audience, guys, I'm giving away 2 of these Mavics chairs. They retail for around $700 each. They're super nice and comfortable, and if you guys head to the pinned comment, you can enter to win a chair. It is US only. Also, I'm giving away 25 cases of Guayaquil yerba mate. It's a tea slash like energy kind of beverage that I've been drinking since I was in college. I reached out to them to sponsor the stream and this giveaway, so I've got tons of drinks to give away if you guys want to try that as well. Very cool, guys. With that, let's get into the video. All right, guys, so I'm going to try to rapid fire through these, and the first weapon we're talking about is the Globetrotter. Now, the Globetrotter got a 50% damage buff, and that's pretty sizable damage increase. I think I was sleeping on this thing, though, because it is so good. It honestly is so good. I feel like I remember trying the Globetrotter when it first came out and not being very impressed with it, but I highly recommend giving this thing a try. I was using, there should be some gameplay playing with Moes, and it just decimated literally everything. I was using a super soldier to be immune, immortal Moes, so I was immune. You can also use a level 1 super soldier with Zane and spam Mantis. You don't need a level 1, you just need an action skill start. Super soldier, you can use level 65. This thing on Moes is ridiculous, and with Zane and Eraser, using a Hustler class mod to make these projectiles crit that fly up and around all over the place is just a silly combo. 50% buff on the Globetrotter, and I highly recommend it. Once again, this drops in the Guardian takedown from the final boss. Our next weapon is the Moonfire. Now, the Moonfire got a 28.5% buff. It's honestly, like, I like the Moonfire, I really do. 28.5% I don't think is enough of a buff that it should have received. I would have loved to see this thing just become like a crazy hand cannon. On Zane, this thing can do some work, and like on Flak, it could definitely do some work with Ties That Bind. It's pretty fun. It's definitely worth checking out, but I still think that this thing could have seen maybe another 25% and it would have been perfect. Like, as you can see, like, I'm definitely killing things, but I would have loved to see a little bit more love for the Moonfire, because this is the closest thing we have to like a big chunky hand cannon in Borderlands 3, and I kind of love that like archetype. So yeah, the Moonfire drops from the Malawan takedown if you guys want to get one. Still not the best pistol in the game, but it's nice that it got a little bit of love. Our next weapon up is the Reflux. Now, the Reflux is honestly probably my favorite shotgun in Borderlands 3. I absolutely love this thing, and it got a 31% buff. On Fettuccine Flak, my favorite flak build, this is the main weapon that I feature, and it's so freaking good that it got a 31% buff. It honestly didn't need it. Gonna be honest with you guys, it didn't need a buff, but like it now like shreds single targets, which it didn't really do before. It does single targets and it does crazy damage for mobbing. This drops from Genevieve, if I didn't already say that, and I definitely recommend checking it out, because like, look at this. Absolutely go get yourself a Reflux. Our next weapon is the Crader's EMP5. Now, this has always been an interesting weapon. It gives you increased movement speed while you're holding it, and with like a movement speed based Zane build or a driver Amara, there were cool things that you could do with this. It just never really did enough damage. This thing got a 80% damage increase, and I'm gonna be honest, I really do like it. I don't know if this is the weapon for me. I'll show some gameplay in a second, just to showcase this. Right now, it has less damage than a Smog before its amp, and less damage than the Torrent, but its fire rate is pretty solid. This weapon not coming in elemental definitely hurts it. I'm using a 250 phase cast, and it's a little inconsistent, but it's pretty good. It's honestly pretty good, and if you haven't used this thing, I would recommend checking it out. There's our 150 damage increase. It's like small magazine size leads to like some pretty like inconsistent kills here, and I definitely need to increase my magazine size to keep up with it. But, like, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not so good. I would give this thing maybe like a 6 out of 10 right now. I think it could have gotten a little bit more love, but that 80% buff is very, very nice for this thing. I think on Stain or a larger magazine setup on Moe's could be really, really cool. Our next weapon is the Smog, and the Smog is a drop from the Guardian Takedown. This thing is honestly like pretty freaking good before the buff. I was using this thing on Immortal Moe's, and it literally just shredded everything. This thing only got a 16% buff, which isn't a lot. Like, that 16% isn't a lot, but this thing was honestly very competitive with other SMGs beforehand. It can be a little bit difficult to use with its mechanic. Basically, you need to keep the weapon shield full. There, I took damage. I lost my amp damage, and now it's not going to hit that hard. But when you're using your amp damage on this thing, especially on Immortal builds that can't take damage, it's pretty silly. It's pretty silly. Mortal Moe's or like an ASS Super Soldier Spam on Zane. I know those builds are like crazy strong already, but this thing is really good. Genuinely, definitely recommend the Smog. If you haven't checked it out, we're using it on Thundara Amara, and as you can see, it puts in much better work than the Crader here. Just one little clip with the Smog real quick. Watch this. It's pretty good. Would recommend. Definitely would recommend checking out the Smog if you haven't already. Our next weapon is the Kibsworth. Now, I went back on like OG Firehose Moe's, Old God, Blastmaster, Malon Company Man, Cloning Mining Tracker with a consecutive hits Kibsworth, and this thing got a 150% damage increase. The Kibsworth used to be like the meta SMG. It got power crept by things like the flipper and things like the plasma coil, but it is back. I don't want to say that it's like the best SMG right now, because I don't think that it is, but it is a very, very, very good option, just to show you guys how much this thing just like absolutely melts. It's crazy strong. It really is crazy strong. I would have to do like time tests between this and the flipper and the Kibsworth to see like which is the best SMG, which if you guys are interested in doing that, I definitely would be, because I'm curious. But 150% damage increase. This thing would have been fine with the 50% damage increase, but 150, this thing absolutely shreds. I really do enjoy this weapon. The one thing that's different about using this versus like the flipper or the plasma coil is that this does do self-splash damage. Just something you need to be wary of when you're using it, because Evan had to worry about like self-splash with a Malawan weapon, and a bit because of our current menace. Let's see if we can kill a nice kill on Kraken here with a shock one, by the way. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right, guys, that is the Kibsworth. Moving on. Our next weapon is the Web Slinger. Now, this weapon has just been bad for so long. It's actually received a few buffs. Today, or in this hotfix, it got a 111% damage increase. That is hugely significant. And when you take this thing out for a spin on any of the characters, my biggest opinion of it is, meh. It's just not good still. For its ammo consumption, that was my phase cast. We're playing Thundara Amara. For its like ammo consumption and the rarity of like getting this weapon, I still think it could be a little bit better. Now, clearly, like, I mean, we're on True Takedown right now, and it's killing things. Like, this is a good buff for this weapon. It can still, or it can now kill things. Like, it can definitely kill things. But I'm just like, in terms of comparing this to the Smog or the Globetrotter that were also buffed alongside of this thing, I would take either of those weapons any day over the Web Slinger. It's huge ammo consumption, it's crazy need to reload, and it's like, it's not very worth. Now, I will say that the underbarrel launcher on it does hit significantly hard. It's pretty good damage. I just still don't think this thing is like really worth your time to use or try to farm a good one. As you can see, like, I'm playing one of my best builds, and like It's just a struggle. It's just a struggle. All right, moving on to our next weapon. Our next weapon is the DNA. Now, this thing received a 31% damage increase. It was already pretty good. It got a big increase a while ago. I forget what the exact number was, but it was very substantial. And this thing now is even better. That's really all there is to say about it. 31% isn't anything to do too crazy to it, considering like the other buffs. But this thing, when it does connect, hits decently hard. Right there, like not the greatest showing of it. I like using this thing with ties that bind on Amara because of its slow travel speed. That's the main thing that I think feels awkward about this weapon, is its slow travel speed on its projectiles. So using it with something like ties that bind on Amara to lock enemies in place feels really, really good. And when this thing connects, it's very solid. Honestly, not my favorite SMG, but a 31% buff on an already solid one is just really nice. Our next weapon is the Multitap, and the Multitap is the quote-unquote winner of this hotfix, receiving the largest buff out of any of the weapons. The Multitap got a 175% damage increase on this thing. That's freaking, I mean, to put it lightly, that's a lot of damage. This thing is really nice. I still don't like love it just because it's an Atlas pistol, and I can't say that I'm the biggest fan of just Atlas pistols in general, but in terms of Atlas weapons, this thing is very strong, and for mobbing it can be nice. As I'm using it on Amara right now, I don't like using it on Amara. I really don't like using it on Amara. Faster fire rate characters with high reload speed will get way more out of this weapon with its tracking Cryo Dart, aka Zane. This weapon I like running on Zane. Not a huge fan of running it on the other characters, but as you can see there, like when it's connecting and it's doing its stuff, it's pretty freaking good damage. It's pretty good damage. Multitap 175% buff. Our next weapon is the Tanksman shield. Now this thing got a 50% damage increase and drops from Captain Trot and Athena's, and has the unique property every kill adds weapon damage to its next magazine, aka you get a bunch of kills and then you reload, and in that next magazine you're going to have a ton of extra damage. This thing has been pretty mediocre for a very long time. Pretty forgotten sniper rifle. I don't think 50% damage increase was quite enough. It is fun to take for a spin and mess around with its mechanic. I do wish it was a little bit more damage, just to show you some gameplay with ties that bind and a 390 Tanksman's on Amara. Note, like, I don't know. I just don't think this thing is as strong as it needs to be yet. There we got some kills. We got our reload. See if we can ramp up some damage. But yeah, overall, I'm not a big fan of this weapon. Probably won't be using it too much. I'm happy they buffed it, but I don't like this thing very much, to be honest with y'all. It's not my weapon. Guys, that is going to do it for this video. There's two things that I didn't mention. One is the redistributor, which got a 160% damage buff. That thing is S tier, 10 out of 10. Cannot recommend enough. The only reason I'm not showcasing it off here is I already made a whole video on it, and I made a whole build with it in Shane Zane. And the other thing is the light speed grenade, which only received a 7% damage buff. 7% is a damage buff, but not really enough to like really change anything about that grenade. The light speed's always been a top 5 grenade. It's still remaining a top 5 grenade. And yeah, guys, that is it for the video. If you enjoyed, be sure to drop a like, comment, and subscribe. I will catch you guys in the next one. Take care. Peace.